Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Covenant Army Podcast, where our mission is to equip couples to align with God and win the daily battle raging against marriage and family. I am Brent, and I'm here again with my beautiful wife, Miss Lucy.
I love all that energy you're bringing.
I know, you got to match it, baby girl. I'm waiting for one day I turn over and look at you and you're doing somersaults. I'm going to get you there. I'm the leader. You're going to follow my lead. I'm hoping.
Somersaults.
Whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm.
Cartwheels, somersaults, I don't know what you got. We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll surprise everyone by, having some kind of cool thing going on.
Outside?
Outside. We'll film it from outside. That'd be something. Not. But anyway, today's topic.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a heavy topic, but I don't want it to get too heavy because it's something that I know every marriage wants.
Every couple wants. From the inception of the relationship.
Inception. That's a big word.
People want this.
From the beginning. Yes. And that word.
Fidelity.
Fidelity. And today we're going to be talking about the battle against fidelity. Because fidelity is kind of like the new F word, if you really think about it. What are you laughing for?
The new F word.
It's
That's
the new
nice.
F word because it's kind of like the word that you don't hear a lot anymore. People don't talk about it. Like, why aren't we talking about fidelity in our society and in our marriages?
There's not much of that anywhere. 'Cause if you think about it from a business perspective, there's a lot of insecurity going into business with other people now because nobody's loyal anymore.
We don't trust anybody.
There's a lot of disloyalty
There
nowadays.
There's a lot of disloyalty. I know one thing for me, like I can't even trust going around McDonald's that I'm going to get the food that I asked for. Sometimes I open up the bag and it's not even what I ordered. I lose trust, but I keep going. Not truthfully, no, I don't think. How long has it been since I've had McDonald's?
I don't think that there's an issue with fidelity there.
Because you're faithful.
At McDonald's.
You're faithful. We've talked about this before. Like, if you're faithful to McDonald's, they can mess up your food order 9 ways to Sunday, and you'll still swing back around and get that Big Mac next time around.
I wonder why we've lost, like as a society, that element of
Loyalty?
fidelity, loyalty it's just lost now.
I don't think it's taught.
It's rare, I should say, because there's still some people out there
There are some
that are
people.
trustworthy, but they're far and few between. And it's very scary to say that.
It is scary when you say that, but I really do believe it's because we're not taught that like we once were. You're not taught about being a man of your word, being a woman of your word. Like, if you say something, you got to follow through on it.
Mm-hmm.
If
There's
you're
no
not,
follow through.
If you're not going to do it, don't say it.
Right.
Which causes mistrust, right? You don't believe what people share in that moment. Or, hey, I'm going to be over on Tuesday. I'm going to help you. We'll knock that out. And then you don't show up on Tuesday. Oh, because, something else greater came along.
That's probably why in the Bible God says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Anything outside of that is of the enemy, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I don't understand what has brought society and our world to this place of, I guess, infidelity.
What is infidelity? I know people automatically think about, like cheating in marriages, which that's part of it. But really, it's about being faithful.
Well,
being faithful in all those different circumstances.
Well, and since, we're the marriage folks, let's talk about fidelity in the marriage because there's more than just fidelity when it comes to the physical element. When it comes to sex, there's more than that goes into fidelity in marriage.
It is. So before we go into that, let's talk about what the definition of fidelity is. Do you have that over there?
I have several.
Well, give me just one that you think is applicable to what we're talking about. What is the definition of fidelity?
The quality of being faithful or loyal is
Okay.
one of the ones that came up when I looked it up.
Faithful or loyal.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. I like it.
Let's see. This one here in Wikipedia says fidelity is the quality of faithfulness or loyalty. Its original meaning regarded duty in a broader sense than the related concept of fealty. The degree to which No, we don't want that one. Let's talk about devices. We're going to talk about devices.
Right.
So yeah, it seems like
So faithfulness and loyalty is what I've heard twice. From you.
it's kind of what keeps coming up in different definitions as I look it up.
Well, it made me think of when we were talking about this topic.
Dependability.
I like it.
Truth.
So thinking about fidelity as a whole, like for me growing up, I remember all the old commercials and everything was Semper Fidelis. Semper Fidelis, which is always faithful, which was the motto of the Marines, right? A few, right? The proud, the Marines. There was something special about the Marines. Like, you knew that wherever the Marines, they're always going to be there. Like, they're always going to be faithful. You can depend on them. And it makes me think about, like, in marriage, what would that look like if we had that same motto and belief that you could bank on it? We were always going to be faithful. I'm always going to be faithful. Like, you had that sense of security, that sense of trust.
Well, I think there's been so many criticisms in society today toward marital fidelity that it causes people to stumble quite a bit because of the criticisms that come at you.
What do you mean? Give me some examples.
Nowadays, they try to redefine what marriage is supposed to look like.
Okay, so that can be confusing. I can understand that.
Like people having the polyamorous relationships,
Well, that's
right?
not.
Open marriages.
But you're talking about the world's definition of marriage, not God's definition of marriage.
Correct. I'm talking about like the criticisms, like now that they're trying to kind of come after that monogamous relationship that is marriage and trying to tell people, oh, no, like you don't have to be that way. Who says you have to be that way?
So it kind of loosens the standard.
They're trying to loosen the standard of marital fidelity.
Okay. Well, I could see where that would be a problem. Because
Yeah.
without that standard in your marriage, what does trust even look like? If we have gray lines where there's never really a firm standard that we're supposed to stay within, which communicates trust.
Well, think about it. There's a lot of, I know we talk a lot about movies because we're big movie people, but there are a lot of movies that have messages of being unfaithful,
That's true.
like being unfaithful to your spouse and kind of romanticizing it.
And it makes me think about, because in our last podcast we were talking about that, polluting and getting on the right mindset, changing your mindset. And that
The brainwashing.
the
when we talk about
brainwashing, yeah, right. But that's talking exactly about that. People are seeing this infidelity in front of their face playing out day and night, really. I mean, it's in your commercials now. It's on the movies you watch. It's in the songs that you're listening to. So it really distorts the idea and the picture of God's design of marriage.
Well, there's huge messages being spoken on non-marital sex, right? Easy, no fault divorce, cohabitation.
Ooh, that's true. That's true. There's definitely more of that stuff happening in our society today. And I think the more that people see that picture, it's distorting what even faithfulness looks like anymore, right?
Or it has the potential to distort that fidelity in marriage.
Right, what the fidelity that God calls you to have, of that fact, I'm always going to be here. It's always going to be in you and me, no matter what happens. It's still going to be us. Because if you let that gray in there,
Right.
like somebody that has, and that's going to sound really crazy to some people, an open marriage, where literally there's a swinging door where they are open to someone having another partner in their relationship, which to me it sounds totally like.
Well, I think it's funny that you bring that up because we watched this, remember that therapist show that we watched for a short time that the therapist had the couples and it was
Yes.
supposed to be like a real life thing.
Yeah, it was.
Right?
Yep.
And there's this one specific couple that came in there that they had an open relationship like that.
Right.
And on the front side, they tried to make it sound like it was cool and they were both cool with it. However, as the therapy sessions progressed, you could see the deterioration of the relationship because all of a sudden the woman didn't feel like she was being center. She was no longer his number one, the center of attention in his life. And she wanted to be the priority.
Yeah.
But because they agreed to this kind of open, I don't even remember if they were married or not. Do you remember if they were married?
I'm not for sure.
I don't remember if they were married or not. However, it started to deteriorate and just damage the relationship because now that level of security and commitment is not there when you have that open marriage type of relationship. So there's no security.
Exactly. Again, there's where's the faithfulness at that if you're divided amongst,
Right.
right? And biblical marriage is all about oneness, where the two come together as one. For you to invite that person into the oneness, right, to open yourself up, to be open, honest, and transparent and vulnerable, you need to have that sense of security, that sense of trust right? That allows you to receive that person. And when I say person, your spouse.
Well, and it also alleviates like that marital fidelity and like having that that type of husband and wife relationship alleviates the stress of that insecurity that somebody's going to leave at some point, or that they're not going to be there for the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
It alleviates that stress. So there's a level of fidelity that comes with that marriage union when you walk it out in a godly kind of way.
So let's talk about faithfulness, because I know we talked a little bit about marital and intimacy and that kind of thing. So what's some of the different things as far as faithfulness?
Fidelity.
Well, faithfulness, fidelity, right? Trust. They all kind of are synonymous with each other, so they work together.
Yeah.
Loyalty. That people may not see that as faithfulness. And I know we talked about one, like if you're going to be a man or woman of your word, if you say something, you need to follow through on what you say to your spouse. Like, because if I say, hey, babe, I'm going to take the trash out on Tuesday, and Wednesday morning comes wrong, which, some people are like, it's not a big deal, have Grace and Murphy. Yeah. But every Tuesday I keep saying I'm going to take it out and I don't do it. That's breaking down that element of trust between us.
Mm-hmm.
You're losing a little bit of the faithfulness, the loyalty there, because you're going to start doubting, am I really going to do what I say I'm going to do?
And that's one of those points that we're talking about, that fidelity, that it's not just when we're talking about like the physical element of like sex in a marriage.
Infidelity, right.
Right. Fidelity in your follow through.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Faithful.
Yeah. Are you faithful in following through? And that does erode the fabric of trust and fidelity in marriage. It does when you don't follow through on your word.
Well, let me take you. This is a big one. I feel like it's going to be the 2x4. It's going to bring it through the front door. When we get married, we take vows.
Mm-hmm.
We vow to one another that we're going to do X, Y, and Z, i.e. the stereotypical sickness and in health, right? Richer or poor, all the good stuff. Till death do us part.
Mm-hmm.
I got you no matter what. And then something happens that rocks those vows. I don't follow through on my end of some of those vows. Let's just say something simple. You get sick, and I got to make a hard call. Hey, I know you're sick, but you know what? I really got to go take care of this right now. My buddy really needs my help. And I left you high and dry. What happens? I didn't follow through on my vows in those moments. I'm starting to choose something else other than you. And it's going to start to, again, break down that trust. It's going to make you have a seed of doubt. Well, is he really going to be there when I really need him? Is he really going to choose me like he said I was always going to be his number one?
See, I think every couple should go always revisit their marriage vows to ensure that they're still on the course that they started on.
Exactly, 100%. Well, think about this one, which happens a lot, right? Richer and poor, because we tell couples all the time. Most times, yeah, you're going to have some times you got a little more money, and there's going to come times when life's a little harder, especially when you're in a new marriage, right? And you guys aren't fully established. Expect it. It's going to happen. But that time comes when you guys are really like strained and, things aren't adding up quite like they should. And you haven't taken, Financial Peace University and got everything in line. And the challenges come and your spouse loses their mind on you. And they start berating you about how, this is so difficult for us. Why'd you let this happen to us? And blah, 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 blah. Right. And really goes over the top.
You promised we wouldn't get here. This wouldn't happen.
All the promises, right? And you feel like they abandoned you in this moment of poor. Again, this is not what we signed up for. This is not what we planned on.
But it is, though, when you go back to the vows.
But what I'm saying is the response in that moment.
Right. Well, that's why I say you should always revisit those vows. Try to revisit them even like annually, maybe on your anniversary. Pull them out and look at them. Hey, how are we doing on these vows? Is there something that you want more from me this year as we continue to grow together? Is there something I should do less that's not really kind of hitting the mark? You know what I mean? I think if more couples did more of those intentional talks, revisited those vows, remember what you vowed to one another, we would probably have less and follow through, right? You touch on them and then I vow to continue to do this, and this is how I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a process to it. And then you follow through, I think there'd be less divorce.
100% if you got the actions to follow the words. Always. You can say everything you want to say, but if the actions don't follow it, that's going to fall empty.
Well, I just want to talk on that follow through, because I feel like if you have God in your life,
mm-hmm.
He is the one that helps you follow through when you keep Him engaged in the process.
Oh, for sure.
You can't keep yourself, like, people get exhausted in their own strength.
Mm-hmm.
They get exhausted. Sometimes you just stop and you're like, well, I've done so much, but I haven't done anything for myself. If you don't have God, you will get exhausted. You need God to keep you accountable to your lane, right?
He does, because he brings life to the situation and to the moments. When you're exhausted and you need more life,
mm-hmm.
you need that push to push you past this moment in time.
Right.
He's what brings that to you. He is life. And I think that's what you're talking about there, which is super important.
Yeah.
You know, if you cut off the life source, you're gonna wilt up.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
think that's the only way to carry on with these vows that you promised at the beginning is with God's help, because you have a lot of those bad times in marriage, the poor times, the sick times, all those times will come. And if you don't have God in your life, they will rock your world those times.
Well, I think that's why it's important to all of us about having that faithfulness. You know, we talked about this. Hey, we're all created in the image of God. Our God is faithful. So that's a reflection on us. When we reflect faithfulness in our marriage, we're reflecting God. And our hearts and our souls desire that faithfulness.
Right.
That's why it hurts so bad when there is unfaithfulness.
In any area.
In any area when there's mistrust.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts our heart. It hurts us right down at our soul. And again, I like what you said there, because yes, you need God to be able to do this in these moments, in these situations. I want to talk about a couple of the other things that I think that sometimes people kind of miss. And I know we talked about it in prior podcasts, but when we're hiding things from one another and our spouse finds out, that breeds mistrust. There's a break in loyalty there.
That's an element of infidelity in your relationship. And if you don't think about it that way, you should.
Well, most people don't think about it that way. It's not really hurting them. Okay, yeah, maybe that's a small thing, like you bought something you didn't tell your spouse. Something small. I'm not saying big stuff. I'm not saying like you went out and bought a car. But, you might have bought, what's something small? I don't know. I don't know anymore.
A candy bar?
Not that small. I mean, if your spouse gets
a
upset
T-shirt.
No, I'm thinking something around the $100 range.
Okay.
Something that, could have.
Some people buy $100 shirts.
I don't think I've ever bought a $100 shirt.
Me neither.
But
I'm just saying.
If I were to buy a $100 shirt and I didn't tell you about it, right? Because $100 is going to impact us financially.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it's going to break us, but it's going to impact us. Like, it matters when $100 goes from here to there.
Depending on the season, it might just break us.
Okay. But the point is, if I never told you about it and you feel blindsided and you feel like, why didn't you tell me about this? You're going to feel a certain kind of way. And some people, like, to alleviate that kind of conflict, they just won't say anything, right? It's almost like, I'll ask for forgiveness later and, it'll be okay. But yeah, that wasn't a huge deal, right? But at the end of the day, to your spouse, it may have been a very huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if they have a history of mistrust.
Well, now you have two things, because now you went and bought the thing without talking to your spouse about it, and then you lied about it. So now you got two things that has truly started to cause that erosion in the fidelity of your marriage.
And that was the next part that I was going to bring up, is lying. And I laugh because, obviously God's word is very clear on lying. You're not supposed to lie, guys. Not big lies, not small lies, not little lies, not white lies, not gray lies. No lying, according to God's word, right? He detests a lying tongue. And many times, because we omit, right? Omission. We think, okay, that's not really lying, is it? But omission, guys, is lying.
Right.
And when you omit things that your spouse needs to know about, guess what happens? You're not being loyal.
Right.
They're going to feel blindsided. It's going to knock out that pillar of trust that you've been trying to build. And it could be over something so silly. Right? And many times it's those things that we think is kind of the lesser of two evils, because you're probably doing something your spouse not going to agree with, but because you don't want to face the conflict, you don't tell them about it and you omit something.
Right.
And then they find out about it and boom, that little problem just became a big problem.
Hmm.
You know, and all this stuff is breeding mistrust.
Yep.
Which is, it's breaking that fidelity, that faithfulness. Because you remember when you come together in marriage, you're making a promise together like, I got you. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to cover you. I'm going to do right by you.
Well, I'm reading from an article,
Mhm.
right, on marital fidelity.
Yep.
And they're talking about some of the personal benefits of marital fidelity, right?
Personal benefits. Okay.
One of the first ones that they list is psychological benefits, deep psychological benefits in a firm marital commitment. Like that's what it breeds. Once the promise to be faithful, exclusive, and permanent is given, and after some time of living that way, couples experience a deep sense of psychological peace.
I like that.
Feeling that they can trust each other.
Mm.
Like this is one of those benefits that people kind of undermine and don't really think about, but this is a benefit of that marital fidelity.
Well, I can speak to that personally. In our marriage, I can honestly say with 100% confidence, in the 17 years that we've been together, I don't think there's been one thing that I can honestly think of that you've ever done anything to make me mistrust you. I can't think of anything at all. And it gives me that peace that you're talking about there.
Yeah.
Like I don't have anything to fret about. Like I feel very at peace with our marriage and our relationship. And I know that that's a blessing from the Lord because we're not perfect.
Right.
And if there had been something that's come up, I know that we've talked about it and discussed it so it hasn't become an issue.
Right.
If there has been something, like it's not even a thought in my mind.
Right.
You know, and I know not everybody can say that, right? Because I know personally I have done it to you. There was a time in our relationship where I was omitting things. And I was trying, again, when I'm speaking to you guys, I'm sharing stuff that I probably struggle with because I omitted something because I didn't want to hurt you.
Right.
But at the time, it was something that I was struggling with. And just to be honest, guys, it was tobacco. I picked up a bad habit in the military where I was chewing tobacco. And when I came back overseas,
and it's something we had discussed.
We discussed it, you know, and I told her I had quit, but I was still struggling with it on the backside. And I thought, hey, I'm going to handle this myself. I'm going to wean myself off of it. And I wasn't being completely honest. And there was a time that I fell, got some tobacco, and the evidence was in my car. You came out and you found it, and you felt crushed.
It did. It felt.
You felt like.
It felt like it. I had the feeling like almost like infidelity just happened.
And it's when you told me that, when you shared that with me, how it made you feel. You didn't get on to me. You didn't beat me up. You share with that true heart feeling. You felt like betrayal, like you cheated on me. It set with me because that was something that I knew I never wanted to do. I never wanted to cheat on you. But the way that you explained that to me, it became very real for me. And I'm like, it's true.
And people don't think about it that way.
I have shown you mistrust and it broke my heart. But I'm grateful for that at the same time because it
opened your eyes.
It opened my eyes, but it bonded us closer together at the same time.
Well,
because I truly saw you in that moment.
Well, I don't think people see stuff like that as infidelity. And that does fracture the fidelity in marriage when you keep something from the other person. Like we're not even talking about like sexual infidelity.
Right.
This is just something that you were struggling with that you really were just like, okay, it's not really hurting anybody. Because that was your thought. Like, I'm not really hurting anybody. But once we really got into having the conversation, once it was found out and we had the conversation, then you recognized my concerns about it, my worries, why I didn't like it, how there was somebody that you were hurting, and it was our marriage.
Yeah.
It was you, your body, our body, because we're one in marriage. That oneness is being fractured. So, and I'm grateful that we were able to have good conversation through that and overcome that. And I mean, geesh, it must have been like 10 years ago.
That was longer than that now.
12 years. Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah.
But again, growing through that and having the conversations, the tough conversations, because I know it was one that you didn't want to have because you're by nature a conflict avoider. So you didn't want to have to cross that bridge, but God wanted it healed. Yeah. So he brought it out to the open.
He did. And the win there was I accepted full responsibility for myself. I didn't blame anyone. I didn't kind of push it off. I wasn't making excuses. I had to own it.
Yep.
You know, and I'm glad I did. And this is something that I learned through the process.
Mm.
But at the same time, like looking back on it now, I can honestly say I believed a lie.
Mm.
I believed the lie that I wasn't hurting anyone. I believed the lie that this is not a big deal, you know, because I wasn't like committing adultery. I wasn't doing any
Right.
of that stuff. And recognizing for what it is today, it was a spiritual attack on our marriage that the enemy knew that there was a window open.
Mm-hmm.
He just dropped the seed. He didn't make me do it.
Right.
But he dropped the seed in there that began to lead me down that path of
Justification
and lies and omission.
Mm-hmm.
And promising me that I could have it all, really. He promised me the world, right? You can have this and this, and you're going to be okay. But the problem was the truth. The truth was I was hurting you.
Right.
And the truth was I needed to take responsibility for this. Let's just call it what it is. It's a sin, guys. It was a sin because I wasn't being honest. I was lying. I was going against God's word.
Right. And
sin leads to death. And in that moment, and nobody wants to talk about this, but you know what died in that little bit of moment? A little bit of trust died in that moment. A little piece of trust that we were trying to build on our marriage for so long, but that little bit of sin took it. And yes, prayerfully, it's been many years now, and we're building that trust back. But to this day, I'm trying really hard, with God's help, not to have those moments again.
Yeah, and in my heart, and because I'm in a good relationship with God, I can trust you. I can honestly say that we worked through that, and I don't have a feeling of I don't trust you. I don't have that.
Yeah.
Like, God, I remember how repentant you were after that moment, and I saw you put in the work and be intentional about ridding yourself of that. And I think we're stronger for it, and we're better for it on this side of it.
So I know we're getting close on time, and I know we've scratched the surface on this, but some big takeaways.
Well, I wanted to share two more things.
Please, go ahead.
Of the benefits, the personal benefits of marital fidelity. The second one was permanent marital partnerships accrue material and financial benefits.
So just to clarify, the first one was security. It gives you a more secure.
The first one gives you, yes, there's a deeper psychological benefit to being secure in your marriage.
Which
that
brings
marital
peace.
commitment.
Which
Right.
brings peace.
It brings it peace.
Yep.
Right. And trust.
And
Peace
trust.
and trust.
And the second one
So the second one is accruing material and financial benefits, which we've read in different.
We're in a book right now talking about that.
Right.
Yeah.
There's research, and it says fact-based that faithfully married people are better off financially because they pool their resources with no sharing with additional romantic partners. It's just you two.
Yeah, that's the way it should be.
So they invest together in their own assets, savings, retirement accounts. Like, it all works for the marriage unit.
So financially, we're better together.
Correct.
Right? Long story short.
So, and the third one says faithful marriages generate an ethos of unity.
Oneness.
The oneness. That
Faithfulness. I'm sorry, baby. Go ahead. Faithfulness brings oneness. Faithfulness brings oneness. And I love that because it gives me that picture of our relationship with God. Because God's faithful, we desire that oneness from him.
Yeah.
You know, the Bible, he tells us that he'll never leave us, he'll never forsake us. He'll never leave us, he'll never forsake us. Which means he's not abandoning us. He's not going to turn his heart against us. He's always going to be there. That's as Semper Fi. Always faithful, no matter what.
Yeah, we haven't even, like, there's so many benefits. I mean, to children, like the security for kids of seeing mom and dad working together, being unified and being one, provides just a certain level of security for kids and their development.
It's huge.
So there's a lot. There's a lot more, but I just wanted to touch on some of those because it is important to that marriage fidelity. People don't take fidelity as serious as they should.
Well, again, I think, that's why it's a battle that we face every single day in our marriages and our families because we don't take it serious. We need to take fidelity, faithfulness serious in our marriages every single day.
Yep.
Just like the example that we shared, that one small little thing. Are you willing to sacrifice trust with your spouse over that one little thing? Is it really worth it? And we want to ask you guys as we wrap up this podcast, is there anything that you know that's going on in your life that could be causing the erosion of trust in your marriage?
The erosion of that marriage fidelity.
Yeah, the faithfulness of your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Bring it to God. God knows what we're struggling with. God knows what you're struggling with.
Yeah, you're not hiding it from him. He knows exactly what's happening.
He's not. But he wants to heal you from that. He wants to bring it to the light, like we shared, so you can be healed. Remember, God's about life and life full into the abundance.
Mm.
The enemy's about death. He wants to kill it. He wants to steal, kill, and destroy.
Mm.
Who are you going to choose today? Life or death? And it happens every single day, one moment by moment, choice by choice. Who are you going to serve today?